Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Art of Business English. Now recently, one of my students was promoted to a new position and he'll be required to show guests around the factory and basically explain different areas and processes. So I decided to put together this episode for him and for those of you who may have to do the same thing. So today we'll be covering how to give a guided tour and how to show people around your company. Remember, if you have an area of business that you would like to help or you'd like me to help you with, then don't hesitate to contact me. I'd love to help you out and prepare an episode just for you. Many other people will also benefit from this, so keep that in mind. Now, let's take a look at what we're going to cover in today's episode. So, tips for preparing the tour, how to start the tour, in the third part, useful expressions during the tour, and in the fourth and final part, how to bring the tour to a close. So let's not waste any time and get straight into it. So preparing. Now, the key to a successful tour is planning, okay? So you have to have an idea really of what you're going to explain and the route that you're going to follow before your guests arrive. So you should keep some of the following things in mind when you are preparing a tour. So, objective. It's really important, if possible, you should know your visitors' objectives, okay? So this will help you to adapt the tour and show them the parts of the factory that interest them the most, or offices, not necessarily a factory, it could be your office. You need to ask for and anticipating questions, okay? So you should be ready for any questions that come your way, and furthermore, you should ask regularly if there are any questions you can answer. Now, the third thing you should keep in mind is you should make sure your staff know, okay? So having your staff know a tour will take place will help them feel more comfortable, okay? Especially if they are asked any questions during the tour. So include staff members in your tour where possible. Now, the next one is you should think about the duration of the tour, okay? So think about how long the tour will take and make sure you have enough time and enough things to say, okay? So check with your guest as well to see how much time they have before the tour. And if necessary, you can adjust the tour length to fit in with their plans. Maybe your guest has a flight to take or something like that. So just be aware of that. The next one is the route. Think about which route you should take around the factory or offices, okay? Keep in mind factors such as noise and any dangers. And you should also prepare some English expressions, okay? So that's what we're going to help you with today. You should prepare what you're going to say and then print some expressions out or have them on a tablet ready to consult during the tour. Remember, the general rule, large groups, you need more formal language, but small groups of 3 or 4 people, you can use less formal language. So, machinery and noise, this is another thing I mentioned earlier. This can be a big issue really for effective communication. You'll need to use effective body language and signaling with your hands, okay? So try and avoid turning away from people when you're talking to them, okay? And it's best in this situation that you should explain this. If you're going to a noisy part of the factory, then you should explain a noisy machine or area before you actually reach the area, okay? So that you don't need to shout. So before we end this first part of the episode, I'd like to give you an example of how to brainstorm some typical questions. So simply just sit down with some colleagues and generate some ideas, okay? Based on what you think people will want to know. So remember, this will be linked to the individual objective for each visitor or each visit. So it's important that you know their objectives. So here are some example questions to get you started. So how many people for this process? Okay, maybe someone's asking you how many people are used or required to complete a certain process. How many people do you need to handle the material? Okay. What is the workability of this part or process? Can you explain the ease of production? And finally, how are you implementing MTCR in the process? Okay, so those are some examples, okay? So now that we have a plan in place, let's take a look at some expressions that you can use to start the tour. Okay, so welcoming guests and starting the tour. The thing is that starting a tour is similar in some ways to starting a presentation. we need to welcome the guests, give them some indication of what we will be doing, and from there, you can also tell them about the time and how long it might take. So let's take a look at some useful expressions. So you could say, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Following on from that, you could say, if I could all just have your attention for a minute, or may I have your attention, please? Welcome to the Ford Motor Company. Or you could say, I would like to welcome you all to the Ford Motor Company. My name is Andrew Ambrosius, and today I will be your guide around the installations, or the offices, or the plant, or the factory. As some of you may know, my name is Andrew, and today I will be leading this tour of the installations, office, factory, or plant. Okay, next one is, the tour should take about 30 minutes. Please feel free to ask me any questions as we make our way around. Next one, the tour should last about 45 minutes. Don't hesitate to ask me any questions at any time. I expect the tour to last 30 minutes. Is that okay for everyone? So there's some different options for explaining how long the tour will take and inviting questions. So next, depending on the type of tour, you can offer some warnings about noise and dangers. So for example, you could use some of the following expressions. All guests must put on their earmuffs when I indicate, or I will hold mine up in the air before we enter a noisy area. Okay? Before we enter the plant, please place your protective glasses firmly on your face. Okay, so that's another expression. So earmuffs are what we wear to protect our ears, and protective glasses are gafas protectoras. So another one, can I please bring to your attention some safety points? Or you could say, I would like to explain the safety rules before we officially start the tour. Next one, could all guests listen carefully while I explain the safety precautions? So those are some ideas for safety, okay? So now that we've welcomed the guests and explained any safety precautions, let's look at some essential language for during the tour. So what to say during the tour? Okay, I'd like to start this section by looking at some common expressions we use for giving indications, okay? So you can use these, you can add these to your presentation or to the tour dialogue, okay? So I'll give you the expression and then I'll give you the translation. So first, please come this way. Por favor, vengan por aquí. If everyone could follow me, or if you could all follow me, or if you would follow me. Si todos pudieran seguirme. So you'll see that I'm using quite formal language because I'm using could and would. Now, remember, when we use conditionals, it's less direct and more formal, okay? On your right, you will see, a su derecha, verán. In front of you, you will see, enfrente, verán. Up ahead and to your left, or up ahead and to your right, you will see, enfrente a la izquierda o derecha, verán. Just over there, you should see, justo ahí podrían ver. As we turn the corner, you will see. Al próximo giro verán. Right here we have, y aquí veamos. In the distance, a lo lejos. If we look over there, now here you'd use your hand to point, okay? Como pueden observar aquí, if you look behind me now, si miren detrás de mí ahora, if you look down, you will see. Si miren abajo, verán. If you look up, you will notice. Al mirar arriba, podrán observar. Coming up on the left or the right, viniendo por la derecha o la izquierda, off to the north, lejos hacia el norte, you may have noticed a large conveyor belt to your left. Puede que hayan visto el gran cinta transportadora a su izquierda. Look to the east. Miren al este. If you look closely at this, you will see. Si se fijan bien, podrán ver. To the west. Al oeste. I'd like to point a few things out. Me gustaría señalar algunos detalles. In a few moments, we'll be passing. En breve, pasaremos. Next step, próximo paso. Following on from that, a continuación. After that or after this, después. Now that we have some common expressions for giving indications, I'd like to quickly give you a list of common prepositions. Okay, so you're probably going to use these on, over, under, above, next to, in front of, behind, near, in, and below. So here are a few phrases to help you with some small talk. Remember, you may need to do some small talk before the start of the tour, okay, or during the tour, and these will help in situations where you're waiting for someone to arrive and you find yourself alone with guests. Okay, so this could happen at a number of points, beginning or during, and even at the end. So you could say something like, how was your flight? Okay, it's a very typical expression. Is this your first time in Barcelona? Can I recommend anything to do in Barcelona? So, how is business in your parts? I'll repeat that one. So, how is business in your parts? Will you be staying long in Barcelona? Is there any particular part of the plant that interests you the most? So let's look at some common expressions for talking about your company. Okay, so during the tour, you may want to explain the company history or some milestones. Okay, so milestones are logros, okay, logros importantes. So to be founded, okay, the company was founded in 1956. Set up. The company was set up by two brothers. To be started. The company was started by Sir Adam Barker. In the past. In the past, the company worked mainly in the textile industry. In the early days. In the early days, the company struggled. Since its inception. Since its inception, the company has focused on manufacturing for the automobile industry. To have a breakthrough. The company made a breakthrough in the early 2000s with the release of its now famous product X. To take on investors. The company took on investors in the mid-90s. To be taken over. The company was taken over in late 2005. So once you have finished giving some history and milestones, you may want to talk about the building or the premises, the plant or the offices. So let's look at some expressions for that. So, to be XXX meters squared. Okay, so our factory is 10,000 square meters. Gateway to. This is the gateway to the main pressing area. Close to. Our warehouse is very close to the production center. To be refurbished. This section of the plant or this section of the office was refurbished recently. Floor. As you can see, we have quite a nice view from the 15th floor. Window pane. We have wall-to-ceiling window panes in each office. Finally, let's look at some expressions for talking about specifically a plant or a factory space. Okay, so main line. Here is the main line for parts assembly. Okay, so main line. Next one, warehouse. Our warehouse is state of the art with a modern parts tracking system. Lorries. We have capacity for 12 loading bays for medium to large sized lorries. Now lorries are camiones, warehouse is almacén, and mainline would be línea de producción principal. Now near side plant. The near side plant is closest to the east perimeter. So la planta es una planta o fábrica más cercana. Okay. Offload. Our suppliers need to offload all material within 1 hour. So offload is descargar. Areas or zones. This is a safety zone around this machine. So es una área o zona. And assembly area. This is the main assembly area where we have over 55 workers per shift. So it's área de montaje. Okay, so that basically is the end of this section. Let's take a look at how we can bring the tour to an end, okay? So to finish up today, I'm going to give you some tips on how you can bring a tour to a nice close. Now remember, this language depends on the formality of the tour, okay? So let's take a look at some nice expressions for wrapping things up, okay? First, I'll look at the first column is formal, and then the second column is informal. So, would anyone like to ask any final questions? Okay, so that's quite formal. Another one, informal. Well, that brings us to the end of the tour. Are there any questions? Okay. Next one. On behalf of Maverick Group, I would like to personally thank you for joining us today. That's formal, okay? So next one, informal. I would like to thank you for coming. Okay, quite simple. Another one, which is informal. I hope you have found the tour interesting. If you have any further questions in the future, then don't hesitate to email or call me. Okay? Now, back to formal. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Will you be leaving now, or could I take you somewhere? Okay. Another informal. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Barcelona. Back to formal. Thank you for joining me on this tour. Now, if there are no further questions, I will take you to the meeting room where some coffee and cake is waiting. And finally, the informal. Will you be staying on to work for a bit? Okay, so those are some expressions that you can use to bring the tour to an end. So let's just finish up with some final thoughts, okay? Well, that's all we really have time for. That's what we have for this episode today. I'd just like to finish up by giving you some final tips. And, the key to your tour is planning. All tours are different, but with these expressions, I think you have the framework to help you put everything together in your tour, okay? You have nice expressions for the introduction and conclusion, and the body of the tour can be filled in with relevant information and some key language from this episode, okay? So for the indicating and things like that. So as always, I really hope you found this episode both interesting and useful. If you do need any further advice, then please get in touch and I'll be more than happy to help. Remember, we don't promote the AOBE podcast, so we can only help others and reach more people by having you guys share and recommend it to your friends and family. So if you love the AOBE, then please share and rate us, and I would really appreciate that from you all. Well, till next week, guys, have a great one, and I'll be seeing you soon. I've got a couple more interesting episodes for August coming up, okay? I'll be away in Mallorca on holiday, but don't worry, I'll still be releasing a few interesting podcasts for you. Okay, then, take care, everyone, and I'll be speaking to you next week. Bye for now.